for a quick Devar Torah. Um, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but there's a unique relationship between the United States and Pesach. Uh, we always think we don't think of it in these terms, but remember, when the United States declared independence, we had laws in place, the Articles of Confederation, but later on we had the Constitution, which solidified the country. Much like when the Jews left Egypt, we had some laws, but everything was solidified at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai. That uh, and the founding fathers did see a parallel. Uh, Jefferson wanted the symbol of the United States to be the Jews being led in the desert by a pillar of fire. That was Jefferson's idea, meaning we're on our way. We're not there yet, but we're on our way. So he took it from the Bible. This is underlined, by the way, by a great anomaly in language. Most languages, all but two languages, translate the United States, the name of the United States, as the United States, except Chinese and Hebrew. Chinese, the translation of the United States is beautiful country, which is a nice thing, for them to say. However, Hebrew, the translation of the United States in Hebrew is Artzot Abrit, which does not mean United States. It means lands of the agreement, lands of the covenant, if you will. It's a much different translation. It's a conceptual translation. And by the way, the United States is the only country where Hebrew actually does this. In all other countries, the Hebrew translation is of whatever that country is in Hebrew. So in other words, it's a unique translation. It's an anomaly on both sides. And I did some research. This translation of the United States as the Sota Brit, or Lands of the Covenant, goes back to the 1790s. So it was recognized very early there was something unique about this country. And what the speakers of Hebrew at the time were mostly rabbis. What they recognized was the uniqueness of the United States. It was a nation that is, there is no American race, as it were, as they would call it, American nation, that people could trace themselves back. To become an American, you had to be either born here or you immigrated legally and attained citizenship through legal means. To be Jewish, you had to either be born Jewish or you converted according to Jewish law. So in other words, what was recognized was the United States as a country of laws. Just as the Jewish people, to maintain our Judaism, we have to follow Jewish law. So in other words, we're a people of law, and we recognize that the United States was a nation of laws. This is underlined, by the way, that if you commit a crime, say in England, they say stop in the name of the king, because the king makes the law. The United States, stop in the name of the law. In Jewish law, the king was important, but even the king was under Jewish law. That he could not violate Jewish law. He could be brought up on charges, if you will. Not that it happened very often, because the king had an army and the Sanhedrin did not. There's a whole story about that. But the idea was there. The prophets could speak to the king and tell him what he was doing that was wrong and not fear retribution. Okay, I mean, it's a unique, and in the ancient world, that was very unique. That you couldn't go into the king and say you're doing this wrong, and then walk away without fear. That was a unique thing. So in other words, there is a direct a connection between what we call the United States today and the holiday coming up, Pesach, or American independence, and Pesach or Passover. So it's something to think about at our Seder table, something to think about.